Hello, our report is all about materials handling, storage, and construction safety. But this topic will demonstrate the methods of safe manual handling, discuss safe procedures in mechanical handling, and enumerate standard requirements on material storage. Materials handling and storage is a technique which includes the art of lifting, placing, storing, or movement of materials through the use of physical strength or appropriate handling equipment. Materials handling has two general classifications, which is manual materials handling and mechanical materials handling. The difference between the manual materials handling and mechanical is that manual materials handling means the moving or handling things by lifting, lowering, pushing, pulling, carrying, holding, or restraining using one's physical strength, meaning you carry it on your own, while mechanical uses tools or mechanical equipment to carry and ease the load you are bringing. What makes manual materials handling hazardous? It is too heavy for the task that you are doing, located too high or low for a safe lift, too big or may have a shape that makes it hard to handle, wet, slippery, or have sharp edges that makes it hard to grasp, unstable or can shift its center of gravity because the contents may flow. In example, a partially filled drum or concrete in a wheelbarrow, and it's too big to let you see where you're putting your. There are many hazards to manual materials handling. For body hazards, using poor lifting techniques can injure you. Or if you have to move material over long distance, it may cause fatigue, does not take appropriate rest breaks, has insufficient recovery time, or a combination of handling tasks. Environment hazards are hazards in the environment, which are the surface are uneven, sloping, etc. Differences in floor levels or elevations, poor housekeeping, inadequate lighting, cold or very hot and humid working environment, windy conditions, fast pace of work, restricted movement because of clothing or lack of space. Manual materials handling also involve pushing and pulling motions at work, using manual carts and trucks, sliding objects such as cartons and flat surfaces, operating tools and controls, opening and closing doors, wrapping or enclosing objects in packaging materials. So common injuries in manual materials handling are back strain, slipping or falling, hand injuries, and also injuries can be also located in the lower legs. If we look at this slide on the right, these are the factors that affect the amount of force that you exert in a horizontal push and pull. Body weight and strength, height of force application, direction of force, the distance of the force, your posture, friction coefficient, duration and distance of push or pull. So in this table, which is called recommend upper force limits for horizontal pushing and pulling, which is a summary that when a person does work, there should be forces that should not exceed. For example, in kneeling, the force applied should not be more than 188 newtons, 42-pound force, or 19-kilogram force. And in table 2, this time we focus on the upper force limits for vertical pushing and pulling. For example, when you pull down on shoulder level, the upper force limit applied should be 315 newtons, 70-pound force, or 32-kilogram force. When you are doing material handling, carrying, and such as a factor, you should wear lightweight, flexible, tear and puncture-resistant clothing, safety boots with toe caps and slip-resistant soles, and protective gloves appropriate for the materials being handled. Do not wear aprons, coats, clothing with exposed buttons, zippers, or loose flaps or heavy-duty mitts. In summary, wear proper protection. In this part of the discussion, which is the manual materials handling, we will discuss what are the proper procedures and techniques on carrying and loading things. So when you are shoveling, first step is to put weight on front foot. Use leg to push shovel. Keep feet wide apart and place front foot close to shovel. The next step is shift weight to rear foot and keep load close to body. Then turn the feet in direction of the throw. When you are digging, You must first push their spade down using leg muscle. Then, slide load closely to body. Ensure load is loose from ground before lifting. So in lifting, before you lift any heavy objects or any kind, always check to see if mechanical aids such as hoist, lift trucks, dollies, or wheelbarrows are available. Get help as much as possible with heavy or awkward loads. Assess and identify the weight of the load. Be sure that you can lift the load without overexertion. Be sure that the load is free to move. So when you lift objects, you must follow proper posture to assure that you avoid injuries to the back, hands, or your hips. So before lifting, check if the planned location of the load is free of obstacles and debris. Be sure that the path is clear of grease, oil, water, litter, and debris that can cause slips and falls. Particular handling and lifting techniques are needed for different kinds of load of materials being handled. Do not lift any heavy objects if you're not sure that you can handle the load safely. So, general tips for lifting is that you must first examine the load and your surrounding if it's safe to bring. Prepare for the lift by warming up the muscles. Stand close to the load and face the way you intend to move. Use a wide stance to gain balance. Be sure to have a good grip. Look forward and keep back straight, and keep your arms straight. Also, tighten your abdominal muscles. Tuck chin into the chest. Initiate the lift with body weight. Use muscle power of the legs in lifting. Lift the load as close to the body. Lift it smoothly without jerking. And avoid twisting and side bending while. So, when you are lifting a compact load or any solid state load, first step is you stand close behind the load. Then you straddle the load. Place the leading foot flat beside the load in the direction of the travel. Place the rear in the direction of travel. Bend the hips and knees and keep your back straight. So when you're lifting a compact load, when lifting, grasp the load with elbows inside the thighs. Use a power grasp for loads with handles. Use slings or hooks to improve grasp when loads do not have handles. Use blocks under loads without handles to make lifting up easier and safer. And use ledge grasp for load without handles. Grasp with one hand at the outer upper corner, over the leading foot and the other hand in the opposite corner. Lean forward with your rear arm straight. This position gets the load moving. Stand up by thrusting off the back leg and continuing in an upward and forward direction. Keep the load close to the body. Keep your rear arm straight and move without twisting the body. So when you are putting the load down, first take a wide stance with one foot in front of the other. Keep the load close to the body. Keep your back straight. Bend the hips and knees. Set the load down to the ground and keep the load tilted to avoid bruising fingers. Remove fingers from under the load. Stand up smoothly, easing the muscles, and avoid jerky releases. When you're lifting compact bags, straddle the end of the bag. Bend your hips and knees. Keep your back straight. Grasp the bag with both hands under the closer end, and keep elbows inside the thighs. Lean forward, straightening the knees to set the bag upright. Readjust the straddle position, moving feet closer to the bag. Readjust the grasp with one hand, clasping the bag against the body and under it. Stand up by thrusting off with the back leg and continuing in an upward and forward direction. Thrust the bag up with the knee while straightening the body. Put the bag on the shoulder opposite the knee, used to thrust the bag up. Stabilize the bag on the shoulder. Move off without bending sideways. And the picture is a summary of what will happen during those steps. So when you are lowering the compact bags, avoid unloading a bag from the shoulder directly to the floor level. Use an intermediate platform or get help from your coworker. Stand close to the platform. Place one foot in the front of the platform. Bend your hips and knees. Keep your back straight. Ease the bag off the shoulder and put it upright on the platform. Pull the bag slightly over the edge of the platform. Stand close to the platform with the bag touching the chest. Clasp the bag against the body with one hand. The other hand holding the bottom of the bag. Step back, bend hip and knees, keeping back straight, and ease the bag on the floor. So this picture is a summary of this.
We have discussed the general tips on lifting, and that is, it is important to lift with your legs and not your back. The same rules apply here in lifting heavy and large sacks. So in the first stage, in lifting the sack, these are the procedures. Straddle the end of the sack, bend the hips and knees, keep the back straight, don't stoop, rest the bag with both hands under the end closest to you. Keep elbows inside the thighs. Lean forward and straighten the knees to set the bag upright. Move your feet closer to the sack. Squat with one sack between the thighs with one foot flat on the floor in front of the other. Grasp the sack with your elbow inside the thighs. With one hand, clasp the sack against your body and use your other hand to hold the bottom of the sack. On the second stage, stand up in one smooth motion. Place the sack upright on the platform. Place one foot in front of the other with one foot alongside of the platform. In the third stage, bend the hips and knees and keep the back straight. Put one shoulder against the sack. Readjust your grasp, lean the sack against your shoulder. And finally, last stage, stand up and straighten the hips and knees. Make sure your hands and feet are clear when putting the load down. In lifting bulky sacks, it is important that the sack is on a platform. Then follow these steps, which are first, move the sack to the edge of the platform, put your back against the sack, rest the sack with both hands on the upper corners of the sack. Ease the sack onto your back, bend your hips and knees before taking the weight. Keep your back straight. Stand up and straighten your hips and knees. Stabilize the sack. Move away without bending sideways. Next is lifting the sack with two-person. In doing a two-person lift, the steps are pretty much the same in lifting a heavy and large sacks. It's just that there are two people which are equidistant from the center of the sack during the lift. Next is lifting drums and barrels, specifically raising drums from the ground up. One important reminder is that use mechanical aids whenever possible. Do not attempt to raise a full drum alone. But when there is no aids, make sure to follow these steps, which is first, make sure that the drum is empty before raising it. Stand at the end of the drum. Place one foot forward at the side of the drum, the other behind. Bend your hips and knees, keep the back straight, grasp the rim about 50 centimeters from the ground with the elbows inside thighs. Stand up by retracting off the back leg and continuing in an upward and forward direction. Bring the back leg forward as if you're walking. Keep close to the drum. Stop the balance point to change hand grip. Set the drum on its base by moving back leg forward. Use the body weight as a counterbalance. In a two-person lift, it is pretty much the same as the previous one, just that there are two people, but have two people squatting at either side of the drum. In moving a standing drum, these are the steps to follow. First, stand close to the drum with feet apart, one foot at the front and the other behind. Keep knees slightly flexed. Put your hands firmly against upper rim of the drum. Keep arms straight with the elbows locked. Rock the drum gently to get the feel of its content before move it. Push the top of the drum away by extending the back leg and shifting your body weight onto your front leg. Stop tilting the drum at the balance point. Use back leg as a counterbalance. Important reminders in lifting drums and barrels, and should always be followed, which is, do not handle drums and barrels without proper training. Do not manually move drums or barrel when they are stacked. Use crane or lift trucks. Next is lifting sheet materials. Before starting, make sure to keep in mind these reminders, which is first, store the sheet materials at a convenient height above ground. Do not lift and carry sheets without training. Always wear appropriate safety shoes or boots to prevent materials falling on your feet. So in lifting sheet materials, first, you need to stand close to the pile of sheets in a walking stance. Grasp sheet firmly at the midpoint of its long side with the closer hand. Pull the sheet up and towards your body. Then, change your grip using your other hand and put your fingers on top of the sheet. Pull sheet up to a vertical position and to the side until one half is off the pile. Grasp the lower edge of the sheet with the free hand and support the hand by placing it on your knee. Stand up without bending and twisting your body. So in carrying the sheet materials, it is not advisable to carry it without any aid. Make sure to follow these procedures, which are first, use drywall carts to carry sheet materials. Get help from another person where carts are not available. Apply carrying handles for manual carrying. Grasp the carrying handles firmly when carrying the load. Always use gloves in carrying handle for glass and other materials with sharp edges. Make sure the pathway is clear and has no obstructions. So next is mechanical materials handling. So what mechanical materials handling means is using manually or mechanically powered equipment for handling heavy or bulky items. And there are two types of equipment used in materials handling, which are manually powered materials handling equipment, which reduce physical effort, making materials handling easier and safer. And next is mechanically powered materials handling equipment, which are classified into two, lifting equipments and transport equipments, which we will discuss later on. These are the general tips in using manually powered materials handling equipment. And to sum this all up, what's important is to check the equipment before using it in any specific task. Do not operate without proper training, and always check to see that the equipment are in good condition. These are some of the common examples of manually powered materials handling equipment. First is rolling platforms, which are used to assist in carrying and handling heavy objects where limited space does not allow for comfortable body position. Hand truck to move bulky objects. Shelf truck to move a variety of objects. Platform truck to move heavy, irregular shaped objects. Semi-life skid for temporary storage. And select the rack or bin that suits the task and mount on a semi-life skid or platform truck. Stair climbing truck when moving load on stairs. So this is just a hand truck that is used in stairs. Frame hand truck with larger wheels. So this is just a hand truck with larger wheels. And a pump truck to move materials stored on pallets. Dump truck to move and dump waste materials. Tilting drum cradles and drum dollies to move and empty drums or barrels. And finally, frame hand trucks or dollies to handle sheet materials. And these are the examples of manually powered materials handling equipment. As mentioned earlier, there are two types of mechanically powered materials handling equipments, which are lifting equipments, which includes a variety of items for lifting heavy and bulky items with minimal human intervention, such as hoists and cranes, and transport equipment, which consists of forklifts, dump trucks, trailers, and conveyors, among others. Handling mechanically powered equipment can possess more danger than that of the manual ones, so for safe operations, these precautions must be observed. A worker must not operate an equipment if he is not trained to use it. Operators must be certified and authorized and trained for safety and health involving handling equipment operation. And finally, equipment must be properly maintained and regularly inspected. Also, in using material handling equipment, one can use accessories such as ropes, chains, or steel plastic straps to secure loads and prevent them from sliding or falling off from the equipment. These are some of the rules in using the accessories. In ropes, one should know what particular rope can handle particular tasks or loads. Keep the rope in good condition at all times. In chains, do not let chains get kinked, knotted, or twisted. And in steel and plastic straps, make sure straps are not too loose or tight. Do not lift by the strap unless the same is designed for that purpose.
Good day, everyone. Today we are going to talk about workspace layout. So what is workspace? Basically, it's the area in which you perform your task in relation to your job. Its physical design is important because poor layout may result in injuries and strains due to awkward positions. Its goal is to decrease errors, accidents, and just overall improvement of work efficiency. So means to improve productivity and protection. First, you have all materials at work level. Let yourself be comfortable. Workbenches must have adjustable height and tilt. For easy positioning of workpieces is an example. Platforms must automatically self-adjust, especially when storing materials at a certain height. Ensure that there is enough room to turn around, prevent twisting, especially when carrying heavy loads to avoid accidents, and use adjustable supports or suspenders to lighten the load when using heavy tools. Heavy tools are quite straining due to their sheer weight. Support reduces muscular effort and protects the back, which is quite fragile. These series of illustrations are the summary of what I mentioned earlier, what you must do and what you mustn't. Ensure to follow these simple rules for more productive work and for your own protection also. Now let us go to material storage. Material storage is sometimes easily neglected, but it plays an important role in efficient work. It can be done in a variety of ways to improve working ability and acquire specific materials. The storage must follow these simple rules. It must have at least two exits. It must be properly illuminated to avoid accidents, well ventilated, and must be restricted access only. Only those authorized may enter to avoid accidents, prevent loss, and secure the materials. Having restricted access makes inventory easier because only authorized personnel is allowed inside. To set up storage area, you must follow certain guidelines. Store materials at a convenient height, especially those frequently used for easy access and acquisition. Use vertically mobile shelves. This is to avoid bending and overreaching. Use bin racks for storing small items, as you can see here in the right. Bin racks are compartmentalized, thus making it an ideal storage for items easily misplaced. Next is store heavy and frequently used materials at waist height. When lifting, it is important for the object you're carrying to be near your waist because it is near the location of your center of mass. Having it near will help in stability, thus preventing accidents. Let us continue. Do not store materials at floor level. You must avoid the tendency to bend because the back is fragile. Store it at waist height so the object will be carried by your legs. Use hand trucks with elevating devices in storage and loading areas. Use trucks with tilting device to avoid bending. Use elevating platforms to avoid overreaching. These following steps is especially in regards to storing heavy materials. It is much safer to use machines because unlike humans, there is a physical limitation on what we can do, and it's unspecified. Machines, on the other hand, are specified and we can choose depending on the load, making it ideal for efficient work and safety. So in setting up storage area, you can use this series of illustration as guide on what you must and what you mustn't do in storing. Now let us go to reducing amount of times materials will be moved or handled. But before you start moving materials out of storage, ask these following questions as guidelines. What will be moved? Is it heavy or light? Where will you move these items? The specific location we will put these items? How often will they be moved? To properly position said items in strategic locations? How many will be moved? How far the materials will be moved? And finally, how will the materials be moved? These questions are essential to maximize materials or maximize work and materials handling. Reduce the amount of times. There are certain ways to do so, and these are use rollers, sliding bed, and eliminate extra loading and unloading if possible. Make the equipment do all the work to avoid straining and injuries. Unload as close as possible and use ramps to lessen manual lifting and dragging. Finally, use containers or fluid containers that can be poured without lifting the containers. Use these steps to reduce the times materials will be moved and improve working environment. In materials handling and storage, remember the following. Be alert for hazards, be aware of your surroundings, and act accordingly if necessary. Follow company safety regulations. It's basically for your own safety. Take your time and don't take any chances. When in this line of work, mistakes are costly and very hazardous. Ensure the safety of others as well as your own well-being. Use proper lifting techniques. Use the legs, not the back. The back is fragile. Use your legs because it's stronger. Avoid straining always. Get help or mechanical assistance if necessary. If in doubt, do ask help to avoid mistakes. Wear protective gear always. Keep an eye on what others are doing and act accordingly if necessary, and let other workers know what you are doing. So these are the things to remember. Thank you.
So now we will tackle construction safety. The first is definitions. So before proceeding, we will take a look at some of the terms and its meaning used in the preceding section. First is sheeting, which means the vertical member of shoring and timbering which directly resists pressure from side of an excavation. Next is rail, which means the longitudinal member of shoring and timbering which directly resists pressure from sheathing. Next is strut, means the transverse member of shoring and timbering which directly resists pressure from sheeting of wales. Next is scaffold, which is basically a temporary platform seen in construction sites which is used to support workers or to allow the hoisting and lowering of workers, their tools, and materials. Next are some parts of the scaffold. First is a standard or upright, which means the vertical member of scaffold transmitting the load to the ground or to a base plate. Next is ledger or stringer, means a scaffold bracing which extend horizontally from standard to standard, forming right angles with the footlugs and forms a tie between the standards. Next is footlug or bearer, which means a scaffold member spanning between a ledger and a building wall or between two ledgers upon which the platform rests. Next is brace, which means a scaffold member that holds standard or upright in a fixed position to prevent any lateral movement. Next is a single scaffold, which is basically a platform supported by a single row of uprights or standards. Or in simpler terms, it has only one working platform. Next is a double scaffold, which is basically a scaffold with two working platforms. So next is suspended scaffold, which means a scaffold suspended by means of ropes or chains capable of being lowered or raised by which pulley or block or such other means. Next is a trestle scaffold, which means a scaffold in which the supports for the platform are step ladders, tripods, or similar movable contrivances. Next is hoist, which means a lifting machine with a carriage platform or cage which moves on guides. And finally, lifting appliances. So it can be anything that is used for raising and lowering objects. And that's it for the definitions.
In the general provisions of construction safety, there are certain elements that must exist to ensure the safety of workers. Now let us talk about these various elements. First, the Health and Safety Committee. It must exist and conform with Rule 1040, the Health and Safety Committee Rule, and Rule 1960, which revolves around occupational health services to ensure the workers' well-being. Next is alternative methods and materials. The material used may vary, provided that the strength of the new material used is at least comparable to the intended material. Next is in terms of electrical matters. Steps shall be taken to prevent danger to the workers, especially involving live wires due to electric cables of equipment. And for the last thing on this slide is machine guards shall be utilized in accordance to Rule 1200, or the machine guarding rule. All dangerous parts of driven machinery shall be effectively guarded unless so constructed or located to prevent any person or object from coming or brought into contact with them. So fire protection. In fire protection is to have means to combat accidents in relation to fire. Permanent standpipes must be installed and be in strategic locations. It must be connected to a hose with 1.5 inches in diameter and equipped with various nodes, stream, straight, and fog. Ensure that the connection of the hoses is similar to the fire department standards and must be protected and easily accessible. So let us continue. So lighting of work areas. All work areas that are dangerous shall be well lit with the minimum requirements provided by Rule 1210 or Electrical Safety Rule. Next is in lifting weights. There are limits for manual labor. For a male worker, he must not carry a load over 50 kilograms, and for female workers, must not pass over 25 kilograms. So in repairing pipelines, pipeline repair must not be done if pressure is not released. Ensure that the worker will be away from the danger due to pressurized pipelines. Ensure that workers' safety always. So next is protection of the public. To protect the public, a covered pathway will be used by pedestrians and workers alike. It will serve as protection for falling objects and the lot. Protection from falling materials. Steps will be taken to protect workers via providing protective gear such as helmets. But to increase safety, one must follow that objects shall not be thrown from a height. Use a crane, hoists, or chutes, but if not available, ensure that no person is allowed near the area. Protruding nails and loose materials. Under no circumstances that materials with protruding nails will be allowed to remain in the area. It's quite hazardous to the workers. Loose materials are to be removed and stuck properly to avoid obstruction. It should not be stored in such a way that it is hazardous to the worker. Against collapse of structure, it will involve the usage of various supports, such as guys, stays, and other fixings. Building shoring will be undertaken to prevent collapse. Safe means of access, it is basically providing entrance and exits and maintained at every workspace. Storage of materials. You must ensure that your storage unit is capable of carrying intended load. It must be reinforced and follow the guidelines. And next is storage of cylinders. Compressed gas cylinders shall be stored upright and protected from overturning and heat when not in use for the safety of everyone. So traffic control. If your work will affect the roads, flagmen, warning signs, barriers, and control devices are essential for the safety of workers and the public. When using vehicles or vehicular loading, while loading heavy materials, safety gear shall be provided and no person shall remain inside the vehicle if possible. And vehicle driving. It is important that the driver must have adequate training and must be qualified to drive certain vehicles. They must have the permission of their supervisor for them to drive certain vehicles. Internal combustion engine. No internal combustion engine shall be operated in an enclosed area unless discharge gases or fumes cannot return to the enclosure and the location is well ventilated. Next and finally is personal protective equipment. It is a requirement in Rule 1080. It shall be provided to the workers for their own safety.
So the Rule 1413, which caters the ruling of the excavation. So during shoring and timbering, the walls of every excavation over 1 meter or 3 feet deep shall be supported by an adequate shoring and timbering to prevent collapse, provided additional not apply to an excavation, in which a worker is not required to enter for any purposes. Cut in solid rock, the walls are sloped to a 45-degree angle from the vertical or cut the angle of repose, in which a worker is engaged in timbering or other work for the purpose of complying with this rule if precautions are taken to ensure his safety. Shoring or timbering excavation over 6.6 meters or 29 feet deep should install to prevent the movement collapse of an adjacent structure shall be designed by a structural engineer and approved by the proper authority. No excavation in an adjacent building or structure shall be undertaken unless steps are taken to prevent danger to workers. Before shoring or timbering, the walls of an excavation shall be stripped of loose rocks or other materials that might slide on workers. Every excavation over 1 meter or 3 feet shall be kept free of water at all times. So in the ruling of minimum berm, excavated material shall be kept from the edge of the excavation to provide a clear berm of a distance not less than 1/3 the depth of the excavation. The disposal area is limited of a berm of reduced width of not less than 1 meter may be allowed. So the ruling of tools and machineries is such that tools or materials should be kept to a minimum of 1 meter or 3 feet away from the edge of the excavation to prevent accidents. No vehicle or other machinery shall be driven, operated, or laid near the edge of the excavation at least a distance of 1/3 of its depth to avoid falling. So in the provision for barricades in an excavation, to prevent the fall of workers, the height of the barricade should be more than 2 meters or 6 feet, or also at least 1 meter and 3 feet. So in case there are freak accidents during excavation, there are rulings on the means of access and escape. Every excavation over 1 meter or 3 feet deep should be provided with means of access and escape in case of flooding or collapse of the excavation work. Every excavation shall have at least one ladder every 16.6 meters of length or fraction. So the inspection and examination of excavation is such that every part of an excavation over 2 meters or 6 feet deep, workers shall be inspected by the person in charge at least once every day. So during the supervision and execution of timbering and other work, timbering or support for any excavation shall be erected, added, altered, or dismantled only under the direction of the project supervisor. Timbering and other support for any excavation shall be good for the concern of sound materials and of adequate strength, for the purpose of which it is used and properly maintained. All struts and bracings shall be properly secured to prevent displacement. Timber giving off toxic sap or substance soluble in water shall not be used for timbering. So, there are always harmful dust, gases, and fumes during excavation. So when the harmful dust, gases, and fumes are present in an excavation to such a degree hazardous to the safety and health of the workers, all measures shall be taken either by exhaust ventilation or by other means to free the area of such contaminants. Internal combustion engine shall only be operated in excavation when provision is made to ensure that the exhaust gases and fumes are rendered harmless or discharged to a point away from the excavation. So the sizes and spacing of members is that the sheeting shall not be less than 5 centimeters by 15 centimeters or 2 inch by 6 inches in section. Wheels not less than 10 centimeters by 15 centimeters, 4 inches or 6 inches in section, and struts not less than 10 by 15 centimeters or 4 by 6 inches in section. The length and section and the spacing of timbering members shall be designed considering the nature of soil and depth of the surroundings.
In the definition, we have discussed on what is a scaffold. So in this section, we will discuss the rules in manufacturing and using a scaffold. So to sum these rules, every scaffold and its member must be designed by a professional, and all materials shall be of quality and strength of what is its intended purpose. Maintenance of scaffold is very important because these will ensure the safety of the workers and that no accident will happen. So first, all scaffolds shall be properly maintained and every part shall be kept, fixed, and secured in position to prevent displacement. No partly dismantled scaffold shall be used unless it is rendered stable, strong, and safe for the purpose. Scaffoldings left standing for 4 months shall not be used until damaged members are replaced and the whole structure returned to its original strength. Supervision and inspection is just as important as everything, and that is also for safety. So first, scaffold shall be erected, added, altered, or dismantled only under the supervision of the person in charge of the construction. All materials used in any scaffold shall be inspected before use. Lumber with 2 nails holes aligned crosswise or 4 nails holes along its length shall be used as horizontal load-bearing member of scaffold. So scaffolds has a criteria to make in order to be used, and that every scaffold shall be capable of supporting twice the maximum load to which it may be subjected without exceeding the allowable unit stress of the materials used, have all standards diagonally and horizontally braced to prevent lateral movement, and have no splices. Next is construction of single timber scaffolds. So in single scaffold, the standard shall be placed at 1.18 to 2.43 meters apart at a distance of 1 meter from the wall, connected horizontally by ledgers spaced vertically at 1.51 meters to 1.81 meters on centers. Footlogs shall be placed in the holes left in the walls. And next, the size of the standard shall not be less than 8.9 centimeters in diameter, or its equivalent when it is necessary to extend a standard. The overlap shall not be less than 60 centimeters. In a double scaffold, on the other hand, the outer row shall be at a distance of 1.22 to 1.32 meters from the wall. The footlog shall rest entirely on the ledgers. In addition, a diagonal braces inclined support shall be provided to prevent the scaffold from leaning away from the wall. The support shall be strutted at an intermediate height against the standard. Also, the size of the standard for double scaffold shall not be less than 10 centimeters in diameter, or its equivalent, and when it is necessary to extend the standard, the overlap shall not be less than 15 centimeters. So these are the rules that applies to both single and double scaffold, which is first, ledgers, standards, and footlogs shall be securely fastened by bolts, dogs, or ropes. The distance between 2 consecutive footlogs shall be designed with due regard to anticipated load and the nature of the platform flooring. As a minimum rule, the spacing shall be as follows. For 3.2 centimeters thick planks, spacing shall not exceed 1 meters. For 3.8 centimeters thick planks, spacing shall not exceed 1.5 meters. Also, the displacement of the foot of the standard shall be prevented either by sinking it into the ground or by fixing it on a base plate. Next, we will discuss the different types of scaffold and the rules in using them. So the first type is the traveling scaffold, which is a scaffold with wheels and can be moved around. So before using a traveling scaffold, it must be of stable construction and rated at the base to prevent overturning, used only on firm and even surface, securely braced, move only from near the base, must not be moved when any worker is on the scaffold. Next type of scaffold is the suspended scaffold, which as you can see in the picture, is a scaffold that is suspended in the air. Suspended scaffold should only be used when the fixed support or outriggers to which it is attached are capable of supporting at least 4 times the maximum load to which they may be subjected without exceeding the allowable unit stress of the materials used. The platform is at least 25 centimeters wide. Suspension points shall not be placed than 3 meters apart and provided with device to keep the platform at a distance from the wall to allow working in a sitting position. Suspended scaffold is raised or lowered. It shall have rope pulls equipped with pulley blocks and mechanical hoisting equipment with a positive device to prevent the scaffold from falling through. Next type is a cantilever scaffold, and every cantilever scaffold shall be properly supported, fixed, and anchored on opposite side of the support. Have outriggers of design, strength, and properly strutted or braced to ensure rigidity and stability. Figures or bracket scaffold shall not be supported or held by dogs, spikes, or similar fixing devices that will be pulled out. Next is boat swing chair, and it is what you can see on the picture. This shall not be used as a substitute for a suspended scaffold unless the work is of such duration and the work is under the supervision of the person responsible for this construction, and only be used as a suspended scaffold when it is at least 76 centimeters deep and either constructed of metal or carried by two strong bands of metal fastened around the sides and bottom. Next type is the ladder scaffold, which as you can see making use of ladder as scaffolding. So it shall only be used when the work is of such light nature and materials for the work is light and can be hung on the ladder. The distance between the ladders of the scaffold is less than 3 meters. Next is trestle scaffold. So a trestle scaffold shall not be used if the working platform is more than 5 meters from the ground or floor or other surface upon which the scaffold is erected. A trestle scaffold shall not be erected in a scaffold platform unless the platform is sufficiently wide for the transport materials. The uprights are firmly attached to the platform and braced to prevent displacement, and designed by structural engineer and approved by the proper authority if erected in a scaffold 10 meters or over in height. Also, no trestle scaffold shall be erected on a suspended scaffold. Next is an outrigger scaffold which shall have its platform within 8 centimeters from the wall and shall have outriggers secured against horizontal and vertical movements. The last type, which is bamboo scaffold, which is a scaffolding made of bamboo. Bamboo scaffold may be used for painting or light construction work, and these are the rules of using bamboo scaffold. The materials and construction shall be sufficient to carry at least 4 times the imposed load. Only one worker shall be allowed in any one span. The maximum span between poles shall be 266 centimeters. When the height or fall is over 6.6 inches, the use of safety belt shall be required. When erected over a height of 10 meters, the design shall be by a structural engineer, approved by a proper authority, and construction shall be under expert supervision, and the maximum height allowed is only 20 meters. Platforms, runway, ramps, and stairs. This is important in construction sites, and all working platforms, runways, and ramps for which workers are liable to fall a distance of more than 2 meters shall be 45 centimeters for platforms with a minimum width of 70 centimeters. And if runways are used for passage of materials, the width shall not be less than 70 centimeters. And also, it shall be provided with the strong guardrails and toe boards with the displayed dimensions, which is 91 centimeters and 20 centimeters. Following shall be the minimum width of platform for various types of scaffold. When the platform is not more than 2 meters above the ground floor, for painters, decorators, and similar types of workers, 30 centimeters. For all other types of workers and tools, 50 centimeters. When the platform is more than 2 meters above the ground or floor, for men, tools, and materials, it should be 1 meter. For men, tools, materials, and vehicle, it should be 1.5 meters. So, every platform, runway, ramp, or stair shall be kept free from any obstruction, materials, rubbish, and projecting nails. When they become slippery due to nature of work, steps shall be taken by way of sanding, cleaning, or by any other means to roughen the surface, and should be securely fastened and braced. The uniformly distributed minimum design load of the platform, runway, ramp, or stair shall be 650 kilograms per square meters or 132 pounds per square feet, and planking U shall not be less than 3 centimeters or 2 inches thick. The scaffold platform shall not project beyond its end support to a distance exceeding 4 times the thickness of the plank unless secured to prevent tipping. All planks, platform, runway, and ramp shall be fixed and supported to prevent sagging and moving. Slope of runways or ramps shall not exceed 2 and 3. When the slope of runway or ramps requires additional foothold using stepping lath, they shall have a minimum section of 5 by 8 centimeters placed at a maximum intervals of 46 centimeters on centers, or extend to the full width of the runway or ramp except that they may be interrupted over a width of not more than 10 centimeters to facilitate the passage of barrows.
Oh, construction equipment. There are things to remember, you need to remember in dealing with construction equipment. These are, first, lifting appliances. Every lifting appliances must be of good mechanical construction. It needs to be properly maintained and secure enough to hold imposed load. Brake control and safety devices. Every crane, grab, and etc. needs to be provided with a brake. This is to prevent load from falling and it becomes a means to control operation. Take note that these must be marked appropriately. Next is protection of crane driver. Due to cranes being used to lift heavy loads, it is important to protect its driver. Platforms must be plated and signalers provided to ensure his or her safety. Guardrails are erected if certain parameters are surpassed. Anchorage and load tests of cranes. It must be securely anchored, well balanced because if lifting appliance is used on uneven or soft ground, it will be hazardous and prone to accidents. It must be properly supervised and reports shall be regularly recorded. Maximum load must be indicated properly and under no circumstances shall a crane be erected if stability is compromised. Drums and pulleys. Every chain that terminates at the winding of drums of a lifting appliance shall be properly secured. Ensure that so that it will not fall. The drums will not fall when using pulleys. At least two chains or ropes shall remain on the drum at all times at two extremities. With regards to cranes and directing jibs, ensure that there is effective interlocking arrangement between the directing drum. Do not use the crane to pull load sideways unless no undue stress is imposed. With crane operations and signaling, cranes or lifting appliances must be operated by trained personnel. Under no circumstance shall an untrained person operate this appliance. It is to increase safety. One or more signalmen will be signal operators if necessary. With regards to these three, with safe working loads, guide direct cranes, testing and examination of lifting appliance, these are all self-explanatory. For safe working loads shall be plainly marked on every lifting appliance. It should be visible to the operators so they may be able to judge it properly. For the guide direct cranes, measures shall be taken to prevent the foot of the king post of any direct crane from being lifted out of its socket. This is to ensure its position and its stability, and testing and examinations of lifting appliance. No lifting appliance shall be used unless it has been tested and examined thoroughly for everyone's safety. No lifting appliance must have undergone substantial alteration or repair which may have affected its strength and stability. Hoist. Every hoistway shall be efficiently protected by enclosures when access to the hoist is necessary. Such enclosures and gates shall be extended to at least 2.16 meters in height. Marking of safe working load on hoist is to ensure that the hoist will not go over its limit and harm the workers. A notice prohibiting overloading of the hoist shall be placed on the platform or the cage of the hoist. An operation of hoist just ensures that the doors of the enclosure is of interlock top. The cage must be completely covered and fitted with overrun devices. Carriage of persons by means of lifting appliances. No person shall be raised by a power-driven lifting device without using approved scaffold. Ensure the person's safety at all times. It must not be constricted in operating in one position, and measures shall be taken to prevent accidents such as spinning, tipping, and etc. Test and examination of hoists. Every hoist must be tested and examined every 6 months to ensure its functionality and safety. It must be done by a competent person and recorded in a logbook that will be made available for future inspection. Finally, let us go to chain, ropes, and lifting gears. You must use proper equipment, choose what is necessary, and meet the specification required for a task. No wires shall be used to lift loads in 10 meters length, and that these ropes or chains are secured properly for everyone's safety. For everything else, for the construction equipment, these are the telltale signs of making sure that you are safe. Make sure to follow these rules and regulations for each individual parts of equipment. That is all from my part. Thank you.
So Rule 146 expounds on the safety of plant and equipment. When the operator of a owner driving crane, shovel, forklift truck, front-end loader, and other heavy machinery is exposed to overhead hazards, a cab, screen, or other overhead protection shall be provided. Number 2. When any equipment or part thereof is being dismantled or repaired, and a worker may be endangered by the collapse of the movement of a bit of equipment, blocking shall be installed to prevent collapse or movement. 3. When a worker is endangered by the rotation or uncontrolled motion of a load being hoisted by a crane or similar hoisting machine, one or more guide ropes or taglines shall be used to prevent rotation or on an uncontrolled motion. Number 4. Using a friction-type clamp used in hoisting materials shall be constructed in a manner that accidental slacking of the hoisting cable will not release the clamp. When the operator of a shovel or similar machine is obstructed in the view of the path of travel of any part of the shovel or similar machine, one or more signalmen shall assist the operator by keeping the part of the shovel or similar machine under observation when it is out of view of the operator, and also communicating with the operator using pre-arranged signals. 6. Every lifting jack shall have its rated capacity legibly cast or stamped in plain view on the jack, and also should be equipped with a positive stop to prevent odd over travel or where a positive stop is impracticable. It shall be provided with a device indicating maximum allowable travel. 7. Where a vehicle, crane, machine, or other equipment is driven and reversed in a location where a worker or the operator will be endangered, operation shall be directed by another worker who shall be stationed in the full view of the operator and the path of travel. 8. An attended vehicle parked on sloping ground or adjacent to an excavation shall have its brakes applied and the wheels blocked to prevent movement. A hose supplying steam or air to a hammer or a pole driver or to a drill carriage shall have attached thereto a wire, rope, or chain to prevent the hose from whipping. 10. Piles or sheet piling shall be adequately supported at all times during hoisting, facing, removal, or withdrawal, and no worker who is not directly engaged in such operation shall be in the area where the operation are being carried out.
Rules in conducting a demolition work. On every demolition work, danger signs shall be posted around the structure and all doors and opening giving access to the structure shall be kept barricaded or guarded. Second, demolition work shall not commence until all necessary steps have been taken to prevent injury to any person or damage to adjoining properties, and all existing gas, electrical, and other services likely to endanger a worker shall have been shut off or disconnected. Third, prior to demolition, all glass shall be removed from windows or other locations or shall be protected so that there is no possibility of breakage at any stage of the demolition. Following or any other necessary measures shall be taken to prevent the accidental collapse of any part of the building or structure being demolished or any adjacent building or structures endangering the workers. Fifth, demolition shall proceed systematically story by story in a descending order, and the work on the upper floor shall be completely over before removing any of the supporting members of the structure on the lower floor. So this shall not prohibit the demolition section in the same descending order if means are taken to prevent injury to workers and damage to property. 6. All precautions shall be taken to prevent damage from collapse of a building being demolished or any part of it when any part of the framing is removed from a framed or partly framed building. 7. No building or any part of the structure shall be overloaded with debris or materials to render it unsafe and hazardous to persons working. 8. Adequate precautions shall be taken to avoid danger from any sudden twisting, springing, or collapse of any steel or ironwork cut or released. 9. No worker shall stand on top of the wall, pier, or chimney more than 6 meters high unless safe flooring or adequate scaffolding or staging is provided on all sides of the wall, 3 meters away from where he is working. 10. A truss, girder, or any other structural member shall not be disconnected until it has been relieved of all loads other than its own weight and provided with temporary supports. 11. Stairs and stair railings, passageways, and ladders shall be demolished last. And last, when demolition is suspended or discontinued, all access to the remaining parts of the building shall be fenced or barricaded.
So in terms of mechanical demolition, to ensure the safety of all parties involved, due to the fact that it will involve powerful mechanical equipment, you need to follow certain guidelines to ensure the safety of the workers and the civilians alike. The demolition area where work is done uses devices such as weight balls and power shovels, basically heavy equipment capable of building demolition. When buildings are demolished, one must ensure that the perimeter is barricaded for a minimum distance of 1.5 times the height of the structure. Do not allow the entrance of unauthorized persons. The area is very dangerous to everyone. Only authorized personnel should be there because they are trained to adapt in abrupt circumstances. And finally, ensure that mechanical devices that is used will not cause damage to adjacent structures such as power lines, public roads, and even buildings. These guidelines are measures to lessen the hazards that may be encountered due to the unexpected variables. It is important to follow these due to the fact that the scale is a lot larger and the area covered is greater, making it more dangerous to a lot more people.
So Rule 1419 caters the ruling on explosives. So the supervision of explosive is that only a competent person shall be appointed in charge of and personally present at blasting operations. The names of persons designated to handle, transport, prepare or use dynamite or other high explosives shall be posted in the field office and or in the magazine. Importantly, no person inexperienced should be able to handle dynamite unless the inexperienced person work under the personal supervision of a person with adequate experience. Lastly, a record of explosives received and used shall be properly maintained and open for inspection by the enforcing authority. So during blasting or destruction, only the quantity of dynamite required for immediate use in blasting of a part of a building or other structure shall be removed from the magazine. No holes shall be drilled within 3.3 meters or 10 feet of a hole containing explosive or blasting agents. Also, within 6.6 meters, 20 feet of a hole being loaded with explosive or blasting agents. Every firing circuit in connection with blasting operations shall be broken in a suitable manner at a safe distance. When a charge is fired, steps shall be taken to see that the persons employed are in a position free from the explosive or from flying objects. Also, lastly, the applicable provisions of Rule 1140 shall also apply to the use, handling, and storage of explosive in the construction industry.